Hey guys, we are live. Give me a shout if you can hear me okay. Today we're going to be talking about my gear and what worked, what didn't, questions you guys had from my Great Divide Trail through hiking trip. That was 1,100 kilometers, 36 days. I definitely put the gear through its paces, and you guys have had some great questions for me. Let me know in the chat which piece of gear had the most questions asked about it, because there's a lot of skepticism about different pieces of gear that I used, and that definitely was reflected in the questions that you guys were asking. A lot of questions about, did I really enjoy this one piece of gear that I used, or would I have changed things? And we're gonna get into all of that today. Got Bespoke Custom Auto Detailing from Calgary, long-time viewer. Thanks for stopping by. And James, hey James, how's it going, guys? Had a few people who showed up early and been chatting, asking questions. Got 36 viewers in here, and yeah, we'll wait a little bit, let some people kind of roll in here. We got a really funny question, kind of just to kick things off. Sorry if I seem a little bit tired. I'm not that tired. Steph and I just got back from visiting a farm. We went out there petting zoo with my friend and his little family, and we were petting the sheep and goats and little horses and everything, and went to a corn maze. So my allergies are a little bit acting up a little bit right now, but excited to be here. Excited to be chatting with you guys. I love these live streams, so it's always a lot of fun to pop in and connect and answer your questions. You guys always have great questions. That's what I love about this community is when you guys comment on videos, you're always asking great questions, and very knowledgeable too, which is always cool to see. Hey MT from Little Rock, Arkansas. Karen in Montana. I got to get down to Montana and Utah and some of those areas soon. Some good hiking from what I hear. So we got a good amount of people in here already. 50 people. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I'll wait one more minute and then I'll get into that first question. I also ate some peanuts before this. I always get peanuts stuck in my throat. It was really annoying on the Great Divide Trail. Whenever I had nuts every single day, either peanuts, almonds, or cashews, and they just always get stuck in my throat, and I'd be coughing them up for like 30 minutes after I ate them. So that was probably a poor live stream choice on my part. My bad. Hey Shirley from Ladner, BC. My little sister just moved from Ladner her and her husband moved to the East Coast, out to New Brunswick. So I don't know, you probably saw her and him around a little bit. Prince George, Denver, Colorado, all over the place, all over the world. And like I said, today I'm going to be going over, answering a bunch of questions that you guys had and asked me about my gear from the Great Divide Trail. 36 days, 1,100 kilometers. I put it through its paces. We're going to be talking about my tent, sleep system, clothing, pack, electronics. I've kind of grouped all the questions together, so I'll go through the questions about each individual item, and then from there we'll kind of open it up and I'll answer your questions about that. So when we're talking about tents, you guys can ask me 10 questions. Same thing with clothing, sleeping bag. You guys know the drill. Or quilt. I didn't use a sleeping bag. I mentioned, let me know in the chat which gear item got the most questions. Which things you guys are the most skeptical about, whether that was my clothing, or maybe it was a Frog Togs rain gear, my tent, or my sleeping pad. Let me know what you guys think that is. Thanks, Shirley. Hey Kayla from Lethbridge, just south of here. Louisville, Kentucky, Virginia. That was awesome. And I put the super chats from last week on Sunday. Thank you guys so much for those to good use. Steph and I picked up some hazy IPAs today, and gonna have those after the live stream. I'd love to have a beer during the live stream, but usually these go on for about an hour, and I'd have to pee. I'd have to pee halfway through. I don't know how the Schill brothers do it. I don't know if you guys have watched their live streams, but they consume like a bottle of bourbon and like 10 beers each and go for like 5 hours without peeing. It boggles my mind. No idea how they do that. But thanks for stopping by, guys. I'm gonna pop in the I'm gonna jump in right into the first question from Naomi here. It's a gear question, and Naomi asked, "How many pairs of sunglasses have I ever lost in my life?" And honestly, I don't lose things very often, so that's it was kind of rare to be losing my sunglasses so often, and I don't think I've ever lost a pair of sunglasses before. I've definitely wrecked pairs, scratched pairs, but like going through bushes and everything, but never. I don't think I've really lost them. So losing 3-4 pairs of sunglasses on the Great Divide Trail was kind of unique. And yeah, hopefully I've replaced them. Got some Shady Rays sent me some new ones with their free replacement program. So that was awesome. Yeah. GILI IPA right now. Nice. Yeah. Gonna have a beer after this for sure. It's always nice after a live stream. I saw a guess here, Bespoke Custom Auto Detailing guessed the Zerk 40 pack as the piece of gear that you guys had the most questions about and were a little bit skeptical about. So we'll definitely be addressing that. Matt will be talking about the Altiplex. I will be doing a full review on the Altiplex and a bunch of the other gear that I used on this trip as well. Some more like long-term reviews like the Altiplex, the Torrid Apex jacket. I'll probably do another review of the Zerk 40 just because I love it so much and have a few more kind of thoughts to share with you guys in addition to what I talked about in my gear review video that I posted last summer after using it all of last summer. And that's something interesting that I don't think a lot of people kind of realize. Maybe some of you have been around the channel for a while. Hey Devin, Backcountry Exposure, is that probably 80% of the gear that I used on the Great Divide Trail, it was not new gear to me. I've been using it for at least a year or 2 years, and even some of the newer gear like the Altiplex tent, which I just got this year, I had almost a dozen trips with it before taking it on the Great Divide Trail. So I think with some people, they go on a thru hike, a lot of the gear is brand new to them. Maybe they've not done a lot of big backpacking or haven't been quite so ultralight. But for me, like my pack, I've had it for a couple of years. The Enigma Quill, I've been having it for a couple of years. I've been using the X-Lite for like a decade. So it's not new gear to me. So I can definitely answer any questions you guys have about it as we go through things. Bespoke Auto Detailing, thank you so much. That's super generous super chat there. That definitely going into a good beer fund. I need to have a couple beers to put on that 20 pounds that I lost on the trail. Thanks, man. And hopefully I run into you on the trail one of these days. Definitely, if you see my bright colors walking on the trail, give me a shout. We're gonna jump into the first piece of gear that I want to talk about is the tent. This wasn't the piece of gear that had the most questions asked about it, but there was a lot of skepticism about having a single wall tent on the trail. And Sheila, she asked if I actually liked the Z-Packs Altiplex tent. Dark Crash asked how I fared with it and what the major ups and downs were, especially of it being a one-person setup. And honestly, I loved the Altiplex tent. It's made of Dyneema composite fabric, and there's a lot of benefits with that. It doesn't absorb moisture, so like nylon and polyester, it'll absorb moisture into its fibers and then hold onto that. It takes a lot longer to dry out, and you can hold a lot more water weight and have to carry that while you're backpacking. Dyneema DCF doesn't do that, so that was a big bonus for me. It's also super lightweight, just over 400 grams for the entire tent. An equivalent still nylon or still poly tent would probably be about 50% heavier, so that's a lot of weight savings right there for me. And it's something that people asked a lot in the comments, not so much in the questions that you guys asked me in the post I made, but it was around condensation. And I addressed this a little bit in the video that I released on Friday. I think I did. I definitely had a rant to the camera about condensation and how single wall versus double wall and how condensation affects both of them. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a double wall tent doesn't necessarily reduce the amount of condensation that a tent will encounter. All it does is it provides a physical barrier between you and any gear that you have inside the tent and that outer wall where the condensation is accumulating. So with a double wall tent, you're still going to get condensation inside the tent. If it's really cold, you're still going to get condensation accumulating on your gear inside the tent, depending on where that dew point is. And let me know if you guys want an entire video on condensation. I could rant about condensation forever. So either way, I was going to be having to deal with condensation on the Great Divide Trail. And for me, I rather have that DCF single wall tent that doesn't absorb moisture. I can take my little cloth, wipe down the tent on the inside, wipe down the outside, and from there, just eliminate a lot of the water that I'd have to carry and moisture that would then be in the tent when I went to set it up in the evening. So single wall tent DCF was the way to go for me. I don't think I would have enjoyed a double wall tent as much, because it would have been a lot harder to wipe down that condensation on the inside. So yeah, if you guys have questions about the Altiplex tent, definitely let me know. Evan Hammond asked if the tent was worth the money or if I would have taken the Lanshan tent instead. And I don't know if you guys are aware, the Lanshan tent, it's a Sil Nylon single wall tent, one person, the One Pro. Very similar to the Altiplex, but has a few differences and is much cheaper. It's usually around $150 US, whereas the Altiplex I think is like $600 US. I have it up here, $625 US. So it's like a quarter the price. And I'd say for me, the Altiplex was worth the money. I'm going to be using it a lot more. If I was just doing a one-off through hike and that was kind of it for my backpacking, and I would only be going once a year or something, twice a year for the next handful of years, then it wouldn't be worth it. But I backpack a lot, so the Altiplex is worth the investment for me. And Evan also asked, would the Lanshan do the job? And yeah, I love the Lanshan One Pro. It's one of my favorite pieces of gear. Great tent, great budget option that's also ultralight, well put together, and I would not have hesitated to use the Lanshan on the GDT if I was a little bit more a little bit more worried about my budget. So if you guys have questions about the Altiplex tent, let me know. And Petite Hiker, why don't they make double wall tents with an outer wall made from Dyneema? Well, I think if you're getting a DCF tent, weight's obviously, or it's not obvious, but weight's one of the primary factors that you're worried about. So I think that's why you don't see manufacturers putting a mesh wall or a double walled tent with a DCF outer. Just people are just weight conscious. And honestly, for the most part, I think double wall tents are a little bit overrated. That's my personal opinion, and I'll probably do a video kind of talking about that. But a single double wall tent has its place. It is a little bit easier, but a single wall tent, if you're willing to kind of deal with wiping it down, I think is a lot better. Yeah, Nate. Surface tension definitely affects things. But if you have, like, I had a hyper absorbent cloth, so I was able to pull a lot of that water even with the surface tension off of it. But yeah, way and dry, way wet. That's always a good thing to do. I love this more scientific tests and doing that kind of analysis. I think it's a lot of fun. That's for sure. Umit asked, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Can you talk about the space in the Altiplex? Did it bother you to have to keep your backpack outside? The space was great for me. Like, it was long enough and wide enough that I was never touching any of the inner walls at all. And I'm 5'10". I started off at 185 pounds, dropped down to 165. But it was never a worry. I was never touching the inside walls. I had a ton of room to move around, get dressed, and it was not a problem for me. Keeping my backpack on the outside, I probably would have done that even if I had more space in the tent, to be honest. Just my backpack was usually wet, dirty, gross, so I just always kept like things like that in my shoes on the outside of the pack. Everything is photogenic. Double wall is imperative in many buggy parts of the U.S. Not like the single wall tents are still bug proof. So they do have mesh around the bottom that connects to the bathtub floor that prevents any bugs from getting in. They have a net door, so they are bug proof still. Single wall tents, most of them. If you're just using like a tarp, not so much, but they are just as bug proof as my double wall tents. That's for sure. Matt asked if I can talk more about the Swedish cloth seems like a really versatile piece. I agree 100%. This is one of my favorite pieces of gear for this year. So I compared it to I forget the brand, related to MSR. They make just like the little microfiber cloths that you see at REI all over the place. I compared like how much those absorb versus the Swedish cloth, and then when you squeeze it out, how much it then weighs afterwards. The Swedish cloth absorbed, I think it was 30 or 40 times its weight in water, and then when I squeezed it out, it was down to like just a few grams, several grams over its original weight, or maybe double. Whereas the microfiber cloth absorbed 10 times its weight, but then was like held on to 3 or 4 times its water still, I think. So the Swedish cloth just seemed like a much better solution for what I needed it to do, to act as a cloth, really. Sanimus figured people would like the duplex more. For me, I like having one trekking pole to set up my tent. For one, I use one of my other trekking pole as a tripod and for my camera, but even then, I just like the simplicity of one trekking pole, honestly. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing any questions from you guys here about do you use a full-size Swedish cloth, or you cut? I cut it down. I cut it down to about a quarter of its regular size, Karen, for my Swedish cloth. Pedal 2. I'll answer this question just because it's kind of nice. Will you? Yeah, bespoke pack towel. That's the one. Will you be doing an extended backpacking trips this winter? Yeah, I'll be doing tons of backpacking trips. There's snow in the mountains right now up here in Canada, and I'll be getting out. I'm probably gonna get out on a little trip this week. Actually, my first trip since the GDT. So excited about that. Steven, we're gonna answer that question about the sandals. I have all the questions you guys asked here. We're just kind of going through in order: tent, clothing, pack, electronics. If you're just arriving, we're talking about the gear that I use on the Great Divide Trail through hike that I finished in September, and talking about what worked, what didn't, addressing some of the skepticism you guys had about the gear that I used. So a lot of fun, and just moving through tents right now. Josh, we'll get through kind of that kind of question, like what would have I rather have had on the through hike, and those more general things at the end. So we'll go into sleep system. There's only one question about my sleep system from Pika Outdoors. So if you guys have any questions about sleep system, my quilt, sleeping pad, pillow, or anything, then definitely drop a question in the chat there. But Pika Outdoors, who actually makes the soap, the powdered soap that I use, which is, I forget if it was my favorite piece of, like, one on my favorite piece of gear list last year, but it's definitely gonna make the list this year. It's powdered soap is just awesome. It is lighter, it doesn't freeze, it's not as messy, I find. So yeah, love the powdered soap from Peak Outdoors. So shout out to them for this question. They asked, do you use your pad straps every night or on colder nights? Only on colder nights. Do you find pad straps to be a hassle? So I use a quilt when I'm backpacking, and I use pad straps to connect it to my sleeping pad, and I only use it when it's getting colder. For me, I think the transition from when I didn't use pad straps to when I use pad straps is probably around 5 degrees Celsius, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's because when it was warmer than that, I could toss around more, stick a leg out, stick an arm out to cool off. And once it got below that temperature, I wanted to be kind of a little bit more cocooned. So I'd attach the pad straps, and then I'd be good with just the pad straps down to like freezing. And then below freezing, I also did up the neck snap and neck cinch just to really lock in that heat, and I didn't find it to be a hassle. A little hack, I kept my pad straps on my pad, and then when I was putting my pad away, I just roll it up with the pad straps on it, and then it was easy. They just stay on there when I blew the sleeping pad back up. No problem at all. Not a hassle for me. 5C is the 4DF. Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks Evan. Sometimes I get I try to keep up as best I can with the Celsius to Fahrenheit and inches to centimeters and meters, but sometimes my brain gets a little bit jumbled. Bespoke custom auto detailing. You need to tell me your first name, or a nickname you want to be called. We can call you bespoke if you want. As a fellow Enigma owner, do you find the temperature rating accurate? I have a 10F bag and I've not used it, relied on my Vesper quilt up till now. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting question because on Alight Equipment's website, they say that their ratings are based on their limit ratings. So if you guys are familiar, you have comfort rating, limit rating, and then extreme rating. And they say it's limit rating. But then when you compare, then you have other companies like UGQ who say that their ratings are comfort ratings. And then when you compare the actual size of the quilts and how much down is inside them, and then the baffle height, which is the primary indicator of warmth for a quilt or sleeping bag, they're the same. So like a 20F UGQ is basically the same baffle height, amount of down in it, and everything as a 20F Enlighten Equipment. And for me, I found that the Enlighten Equipment 20F rating is pretty accurate as long as you're not dealing with a lot of condensation moisture, which is going to be the case with any sort of down product. So yeah, I actually think that they're being very conservative, saying that their ratings are limit ratings and not comfort ratings. But that's going to be individual for everyone. If you run warm or kind of normal like I do, then that 20F is probably going to be good, down to that -6 20F 20 Fahrenheit. Jason, good to know. I'm gonna make a note about that. Because yeah, I don't want to say when you say, hey Justin, it's bespoke custom auto detailing when we run into each other on the trail. Karen, love that Trekology pillow. Me too. I fell in love with the Trekology pillow on the Great Divide Trail. It's been my favorite pillow for years. I kind of was searching for maybe a better one, and then on the Great Divide Trail just loved it again. Matt Jones, if you could go back to tent, what was your ideal trekking pole height to get the perfect pitch? Whew, I want to say either 43 or 48. I forget exactly, but that was around what it was. I did kind of nail it down, and I made a note about it somewhere. Let's see if I have it in my notes on the other page here. Altiplex. So Z-Pack says 142 centimeters. Yeah, I can't find it in my notes here. I keep a lot of notes. I use Google Keep, and I just keep notes about every single thought that pops into my head because my brain runs at 100 miles an hour sometimes. So I don't want to miss some of those great ideas. Alpine Earth, we'll get to your question. Definitely ask it again when we get to the pack if I don't, but I think I remember seeing that one. Nate, I'm looking to switch into a quilt. Do you ever get cold drafts or cold spots? No. I use two pad straps and then just lock it down around the sides of the sleeping pad and don't get any drafts, and I toss and turn a lot. So I think if you're getting drafts in your quilt, then you're probably using the wrong size or a poorly made pad strap, or you aren't putting it onto the pad correctly. So I think I made a video about quilts where I talk about how to put a pad strap on correctly. So we'll do that. And for those of you who are just joining, we're going through kind of topic by topic. Or gear by gear. We've gone through tents, just sleep system. We're gonna go through clothing, pack, electronics, and then at the end, kind of general stuff like what I'd switch out and what I was the most happy with. So save your questions for kind of when we get to that topic. Otherwise, I might miss them. I don't want to get too jumbled. I want to keep it kind of a little bit structured. The OCD in me. You guys are probably not surprised that I'm doing a structured live stream like that. Josh asked, do you have any tips on comfort with the Trekology pillow? When you sleep on it with your ears, yeah, you could check out, maybe the Trekology is not the right one for you. You could check out the Hikenture. It has a little bit of a foam topping to it. I don't inflate it as much maybe. I always wear a toque or beanie on my head, so that kind of cushions it. But yeah, I've never had a problem with that. The newer one with the pad strap has a little bit of a softer, more stretchy material on top. So if you're not using the one with the pad strap, then definitely, or not, yeah, without the pads. If you're not using it with the pad strap, then definitely get that one. Wiley, how often do you use the GG pad under your sleeping pad? Great question. Anytime it got down to around -6 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, or I was sleeping on snow, then I'd use or if it was very wet and cold, then I'd put the pad underneath the sleeping pad, the thin light pad underneath the sleeping pad. If it was really dry, then I wouldn't bother, because it's really that wet, cold ground that sucks the heat out of you. Steven, you put the pad inside the foot box, or definitely the foot box on top, because you don't want to compress that insulation on the bottom of the foot box. Travis asks, as a side sleeper using a Disco 30, but considering a quilt, I do toss back and forth throughout the night. Quilt is more roomy than a bag. Quilt is the best thing ever for someone who tosses and turns. I toss and turn all the time, and I love a quilt. I have a lot of troubles with sleeping bags sometimes. Yeah, the neck strap is great for a quilt. Evan, don't waste your money on the Outdoor Vitals quilt because of North America trade agreements. It will cost basically the same. Yep. Yeah, the quilts and sleeping bags right now if you live in Canada are crazy from the US, just with the duties and the duties that get charged. What degree quilt would you use on the JMT? I'm not sure, Garu. I haven't researched the JMT that much. Probably the same, actually, from what I've heard, 20 degree. Yeah, that's probably 20F. Evan, would you recommend a synthetic quilt, or was there no issues with condensation? There's definitely issues with condensation and humidity with my down quilt on the Great Divide Trail, but synthetic would have been probably 2 or 3 times as bulky. I do have a synthetic quilt, but it's just so bulky, and I use it in winter mostly, or the shoulder season when I'm taking a bigger pack. Haley, the Mex Deluxe pillow, yeah, it's great. I love that foam topper. It doesn't have a pad strap, so I lose it over the course of the night. That's the issue. Jimmy, who would I have to kiss to get my hands on the GG pad? Mountain Laurel Designs also makes or sells one. They don't make it, but they cut it and sell it. So definitely check out Mountain Laurel Designs as well. Yeah, I don't link to them. I link to Garage Growing Gear, because Mountain Laurel Designs was kind of just weird. When I was emailing them, just asking about stock and stuff, they're a little bit weird. So Garage Growing Gear was just a little bit nicer with that communication. So we're gonna move on to the next topic, guys. This is clothing. So a lot of questions about clothing. As you can guess, they focus on 2 things mostly: my rain gear and my footwear. With the Frog Togs, rain gear, she'll ask, would I buy the Frog Togs again, even though your pants ripped? The pants ripping, that's just my big butt. That was earlier in the trip, before I lost a bunch of butt weight, and I just bent over and ripped the pants. But the Frog Togs, I think, are still the best general piece of rain gear out there. I'll talk a little bit more about rain gear, maybe have a little bit of a rant at the end of this, but yeah, if I did the trip again, I would have used the Frog Togs for the first half at least of the trip. When it's not quite as rainy, it worked really well. Not quite as cold, that was a big factor as well, and that's why I switched into the North Face rain gear for the last section. It was more a warmth thing than an actual waterproof thing. I have yet to find fully waterproof rain gear. Like if it's raining all day, you're walking through streams, you're walking through bushes, I haven't found. I've used like Frog Togs costs stuff. I've used $500 jackets, everything, Gore-Tex, everything under the sun, and nothing that's fully waterproof. So that's something that yeah, I like the Frog Togs. I'll continue using Frog Togs and bring it on my trips all the time, that's for sure. Everything is photogenic. I don't know how the Aura rain gloves carry that name without being waterproof. Yeah, I apologize for some of the decathlon stuff. I rave about some of the decathlon gear so much that I think they've mentioned to me that it leads to stock issues. So, which it's cool. It's kind of like the Darwin effect, right? He talks about that with some of his tent stakes. Sometimes he talks about the Easton tent stakes, and all of a sudden they're sold out around the world. Travis, are there any Canadian quilt makers? Yeah, Little Shop of Hammocks makes quilts in Canada. Yeah, and with those OR rain gloves, rain mitts, yeah, just weird that I think the seams just lost their waterproofing, and that's where things leaked from. So yeah. Alpine Earth, what toque do you have? It's -33. Definitely, you can go check out my full post trail gear list video. I have links to like basically everything in there as well if you're having troubles finding it. Dark Crash, what are your tips and tricks for not getting swamp foot or having your skin overly saturated in the rivers? And Sue asked, mentioned that your feet looked really good when you weighed yourself. What did you do for foot care, socks? So kind of the same question with my feet and how I dealt with them being wet a lot, especially with all the creek crossings, the rain. And I think a big factor with that was the socks I had. So I used very thin, lightweight, and gingy toe socks. They're made with mostly polyester material, which does not hold on to a lot of moisture and dries very quickly. So if my feet are wet, it would wick that moisture away into my shoes very quickly and easily, and then it would dry out very quickly as well if I was not going through a stream for a while. So my feet stayed quite dry relative to having something like merino wool, which absorbs like 10 times or more moisture than polyester, 40 times more moisture than polyester. It keeps a lot of moisture, and that can lead to a little bit of swamp foot in my experience. And then at night, I would take my socks and shoes off, and then I had my sandals. So I don't know if you guys saw my sandals made by Mayfly, just super lightweight sandals, and I'd dry them out. And then I'd put my feet into dry socks for sleeping in. And I think that just really helped my feet stay in good shape over the course of the trail. And yeah, that kind of leads me into some of the other questions around footwear. Walking there asked, most people wear Ultras. Why did you choose your shoes? So I use the Hoka One One Speed Goat 4s. And the reason why I went with them is because they have a lot of cushion and they're durable. They have Vibram Mega Grip sole, which is the best outsole that I've ever used. Super sticky and durable. And yeah, they just kept my foot feeling really good. Ultras, I've used them. I had the Lone Peaks. I've had Mountain Kings, Mountain Kings, and while they're great, Zero Drop, I think Zero Drop's like slightly gimmick. All the research that I've done with it is that the only thing that Zero Drop does for most people is that if you rotate Zero Drop into your training, it helps build different muscle groups, and then you're less likely to be injured. So I do that sometimes. I run with Zero Drop shoes occasionally and walk with barefoot shoes, but for a big trip like this, I wanted one shoe that was going to work well, and that was the Speed Goats. And I think the Ultra phenomenon is partly due to some good marketing on their part, the Darwin-Dixie effect. But I don't think Ultras are for everyone, not by a long shot. So definitely make sure and neither are Speed Goats. So make sure you're trying out shoes and finding what works for you. It could take a while. But that's my thought on Ultras. And Gingis are the best as well. I think while shoes, go try out anything. I think with socks, just getting Gingis, yeah, you're gonna be the best with those. Nate asked if I ever use a low-rise gaiter to keep dirt and pebbles out. I've dirty girl gaiters. I just find it a little bit more of a hassle for me. Some people love them, some people need them on some trails, but for me, I just don't use them. Yeah. Andrew asked, would love to hear your thoughts on the Farpoint Alpha Direct fleece sweater, that bright blue sweater that I had. Did it work well as an active layer? Warmth? Did it dry quickly? So I never used it as an active layer. I just used it as a sleeping layer and around camp, and I loved it. It was super warm, very lightweight, and yeah, just if you're looking for a fleece sweater, Alpha Direct is amazing, and the guy over at Farpoint makes a great product. So it's pretty sweet. Got 94 people in here. Welcome everybody. Just going over my clothing systems, my clothing from the Great Divide Trail, as well as all my other gear, answering some questions. We've gone through tent, sleep system, going through clothing now. We're gonna be getting through pack, electronics, and then answering some kind of more general questions like what I would change out later in the podcast. Another clothing question from Steven. Your thoughts on the sandals you bought, and are they worth the price? So we haven't switched over to to the screen yet. So here's those sandals. Very lightweight. I think they have the price here. What is it? 1.8 ounces, which I think is 50 grams for these sandals. They're just made with a plastic cardboard type material that they put some really lightweight thread through, and then there's the line lock in order to lock that all in. and I love them. I think they're worth 30, 35, $40 US there. The pair that I got that I used for 25, 30 days of the trail worked. I use them every single day. Are still in great shape. They're not made for like going rock climbing or anything like that, but I wore them around town, walking around on pavement. They're fine walking around, being a little bit careful at campsites, not kind of scrambling over big roots and stuff like that. And yeah, amazing little sandal. And why I liked them and why I bought them was because I wanted to wash my feet every night and then put my feet into something nice and airy and clean. So that's the sandals, worth it for me. I'll probably be picking up another pair because they run out of stock pretty quickly, and I want another pair just for down the road and as backup. Sheila, I love the Speed Goats. Yeah, great one. Everything is photogenic. 0 drops overrated. Barefoot runners flex your feet. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. The barefoot thing. Like for me, I like to train with a minimalist shoe or barefoot shoe, but then I don't have the foot strength right now, or maybe ever, to be able to hike long distances in minimalist or barefoot shoes. Like it's just not in it for me. So I need the support that comes with a more cushioned shoe and arch support. Thanks, Matthew. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Nate, it saved my feet. I don't think I would have been. I probably with how many issues I've had with my feet in the past. I think using something other than the Speed Goats probably would have led to some more injuries, in one way or another. Travis, no issues getting shipments from Garage Drawn Gear. They're awesome. Shipping, you're gonna pay shipping. They subsidize the shipping. They didn't sponsor this video, but I love them, so I'll give them a shout out right on this. They sponsored the last video, which I really appreciate. And you'll pay taxes, which you'll pay anyways if you bought a product here, but you only get hit with duty with specific types of gear like tents, sleeping bags, quilts. So definitely do your research on that on some products that have extra duty attached to it. And then you could get hit with brokerage fees if it's shipping with something like UPS or FedEx. Garage Drawn Gear, I think, only ships with USPS, but they definitely will ship USPS if you make a note in your order. They only, when I buy stuff from them, they only ship USPS to me, and I only get charged the 5% tax from Alberta. That's it. So not a problem for me. Yeah, Bill, Rain Gear, no one has the perfect solution. No one has even a slightly good solution. I think Rain Gear keeps you warm when it's raining, and other than that, you will not. There's nothing that I've stayed waterproof with. Yeah, Taylor got a new YouTube logo. I don't know if I don't know how many of you else noticed. And yeah, just I want to throw my face in there so you guys can see who I am a little bit easier. Hey Scott, welcome. I don't know if you've been lurking, but Josh, do you know about your shin splints before you started your hike? If so, did you consider any gear to mitigate them? So shin splints developed for me on the hike and got resolved a couple days after Jasper, so probably about 4 days after I got them, after a little bit of rest. And so I did not know I was going to get shin splints. And that was the shin splints. My kind of theory behind it is right before I got to Saskatchewan Crossing, I did a decently long road walk really, really fast. And then I got to Saskatchewan Crossing, did not stretch that night, the only night I did not stretch, and then did another road walk really fast the next day. And I think and then after that, the day after that, the shin splints developed. So I think that's why. So just when I left Jasper, I was doing another road walk, and I used my watch to make sure that I was keeping a slower pace on the road, so I would not aggravate the shin splints. Glenn will talk about the navigation stuff. Yeah, I mean, everything made in the U.S. is less duties, unless it's something that hits. Yeah, I think there's a couple things that still may get hit with duties. Yeah. That thumbnail. Thanks, Rooster. We got another question. I think that's all the questions about clothing. So we'll move on to my pack. So Jason, you guessed exactly the right. This is the question I received the most. This is the piece of gear I received the most questions about, and it's a lot of skepticism. Richards said your pack looked a little bit saggy and not riding the best for you. Do you regret not taking a sturdier pack? And I saw a lot of comments about this. And I think that's because when I was wearing, let me turn this way so I can actually see what I'm doing here. So when I was wearing the pack, it kind of looked like it was pulling backwards on me. I think because of the angle of the pack. And it felt great. Part of that was because it had the running vest style shoulder straps on it, which spreads the load over your entire chest. So even if it's pulling a little bit back, you don't really feel it. My pack was so light most days that it was not a problem. Like at the heaviest, it was 30 pounds with full water. Day to day, it probably averaged less than 20 pounds total with water. So pretty lightweight. So I wasn't really feeling that aspect. But then I kept my tent, which is a very, very light piece of gear, but pretty bulky, in the top above the shoulder straps connected, and it was always tilted a little bit backwards. So I think that made it look like the pack was pulling backwards more than it actually was. And even though it was tilted backwards a little bit more, the tent is so light that it did not cause any problems at all. So yeah, the pack felt great. I would use that pack over and over, and I'd actually recommend that pack for pretty much anybody who's going to be hiking the Great Divide Trail and it's going to be having a lower base weight. I would not have wanted a sturdier pack. I liked the hip mobility that I had with the Zerk 40, as well as not having hip belt pockets, which didn't allow me to kind of get my center of gravity a little bit closer to any cliffs and walls when I was scrambling. So the Zerk 40 pack was awesome. If you guys have any questions about the Zerk 40 pack, drop them into the chat right now. That's one of the things. And the pack felt great. I wouldn't lie to you guys. Like, I have no affiliation with Mountain Smith. If the pack sucked, I would have switched it out. I have a ton of packs, as you guys can see up there. A lot of options. Everything is photogenic. Thanks a lot for the super chat. Okay. You're inspiring. I'll see if $20 will. It's a start towards a flight down to down to New Hampshire where Taylor lives. So we'll see. We'll put it into the we'll put it into the flight fund. Sheila asks, your Zerk 40 pack seems like they have designed this pack for guys and not girls. 100%. They don't make a women's version of the Zerk, and even for smaller men, it's going to be tough. Like when I lost 20 pounds and got down to 165, like that's probably the limit of how small I could have gotten for that pack to still fit me right. If you're smaller than that, then the Zerk 40 wouldn't be a good pack for you. Benevolent Backpacker asks, why do you not opt for a pack cover? I just find them annoying, and they absorb water because they're usually made of sil nylon. And yeah, just not a big pack cover fan. The Zerk 40 is water resistant. It's not waterproof, but I had a pack liner, and I'm a pack liner versus pack cover kind of guy. And I think that's just one of those things that people go one way or the other. Nate asked, great reviews on the Flash 55 pack. Any reason why you chose that over the Zerk over the Flash? And the Flash 55 is one of my favorite packs. It's 55 liters versus 40 liters. It's twice as heavy and has big hip belts that limit my hip mobility and everything. So the Zerk 40 is just a really, really nice lightweight pack that still can carry a load. So that's why I love the Zerk 40 for sure. We're gonna get into some of your questions. Umid asked, DCF versus nylon for packs. Nylon all the way. There's some awesome nylon and polyester materials that are coming out for packs I'm really, really excited about that are almost as light as DCF. Rooster asked, how water resistant was the pack? Pretty water resistant. It probably did not absorb that much water when it rained. I didn't weigh it. I could do that weigh test, but it was pretty good. Alpine Earth, thanks for the super chat. How did you fit 5 to 8 days of food? My gear, similar, can't. I think I had pretty calorie dense food, so I was averaging about 4 calories per gram, I think was my average, and that was really, I don't know. I just was able to fit it all in there. I don't know what more to tell you. Like 5 days was easy. 8 days was a little bit tougher. I had some food kind of stashed in different places, but that's all I got for you. Sorry, I was just able to do it. I think maybe practice helped, but Pedal, the pack straps are compressing your lungs, and this may affect your voice singing. Yeah, that's a very good point. Definitely an argument for a very robust hip belt so that I can open up my lungs more for singing for you guys. That's okay. We're putting that into the review, the long term review of the Zurich 40. It can impact your singing on trail. Brian will get into clothes, so save that question for a little bit. Or we already had clothing. Anything I changed with my clothes? No, not really. I might answer that. I might get into a little more detail about that later. Evan, dude with SBO hike with also has the Zurich. Yeah, I like the Zurich a lot. Alpine Earth, if you have a follow-up question, let me know. Yeah, higher fat and protein. Higher fat, definitely. I think protein and fat. I think protein and carbs have the same amount of calories per unit. I'm not exactly sure on that. Steph would know. Steffi Poo's a dietitian, so she helps me with my food stuff, and I think she gave the okay to my food, and that's probably why I felt really good on trail with the food that I had. Umit, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Hayden asked, we're just reverting back to some shoe questions. Any ankle injuries with your worried about ankle injuries? No. So this is a little bit of a misconception that mids or higher boots will provide ankle support. In order to actually provide ankle support, and I have weak ankles. I played soccer, very high level soccer for most of my life, and had a lot of ankle injuries. So I've done a lot of research into this, and in order for a boot to actually provide ankle support, it needs to be laterally stiff, but then also go up a certain distance up your leg. So I think it's almost, I think it's 6 inches above the ankle bone. I'm not exactly sure, but it's more than what most hiking boots have. And you can test that out too. You can go to the store and try and move your ankle, and it's not going to be enough to avoid injury when you really put a load onto it. So I like trail runners a lot more, and just they're lighter, more maneuverable, and dry out a lot faster most of the time. Wiley asked, did I make any mods to the pack? Yes. I cut off a bunch of straps and removed the foam, and that dropped a lot of weight down. Was there any comfort food items that you brought along the way? Not really. I didn't have any sugar, and it was very sad. Alpine Earthly, share the lighter pack, including food weight after adding all the warm clothes. The lighter pack is in my gear list, post-trip gear list video, which released on Friday. So go check that out. So that's it for the pack questions. I'm going to jump into electronics. So I think there's some electronics here. Hayden, thank you a lot for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Darren, we're going to kick it off with your question about electronics with any issues with communication, especially your inReach not performing with heavy cloud cover. So the inReach always sent messages. It was very good about sending messages. The issue was that it would sometimes send it twice, which was kind of weird. I think the issue I had with it was that it was having troubles communicating with my phone. So the app on the phone with inReach is not great, and sometimes the app would send a message to the inReach would send it, and then it would not realize that the inReach had sent it, and then it'd send the message again to the inReach to send. So luckily I had unlimited messaging, but that would have been a really annoying if I didn't. As well as sometimes the inReach app would not sync with the inReach device, so it wouldn't pull. I'd have to close the app and then turn off Bluetooth, turn Bluetooth on back to force it to pull messages from the inReach. So something that I'm chatting with inReach about, because it's really annoying. They need to upgrade their app, especially with the likes of Zoleo. Zoleo's app is way, way better. There's a lot of other things that I like about the inReach over the Zoleo, but the Zoleo messaging app is definitely a really big benefit for it. Sorry, just jumping through. Jason, have fun, have a good dinner. Give me a shout on Instagram. Bill Green, Ultraplex best practices. I'll jump back to the tent a little bit here. Make sure make sure you have all your guidelines fully extended, and that your you have a tall enough trekking pole. That will make a big difference. And I'll make a video on this, but don't necessarily follow Darwin's advice about making the two back corners horizontal, like straight out from each other and very, very tight. I like to have them a little bit loose, then that pulls forward and you get a really good angle in line with the seam of that corner. Yeah. So, but yeah, connectivity wise for the inReach was great. Sent and received messages, no problem. It's just a little bit of issues with the apps. Sivor Ken, do you have to charge your watch every night? So I use the Garmin Fenix. I'm a big fan of the Fenix line of watches for a whole bunch of different reasons. But I had to charge it every 2 days, and that's with 12 hours of GPS every day, at least 12 hours of GPS every day. And that's that. Yeah, so not bad. And Chris asked, was the percent impact of each charge on your battery bank? So the Fenix regular size watches have about 300 milliamp hours of battery. So that used about 1/30th of my 10,000 milliamp hour, which is actually a little bit 1/20th, because the 10,000 milliamp hour battery bank actually has 6,700 milliamp hours of chargeability in them. So that's with the watch. Chris also asked, how do you manage your routes? Do you store a route for each day, then load it up to follow? Do you put the whole trail as one route? So I use Gaia GPS to create routes for each day, tracks for each day, and then I download those and then upload them to my watch. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future video, but that I did it for each day, and then each day I'd load up that track and follow it. Darren, thank you very much for the super chat. It's cool seeing the super chats, whether they're Canadian or US, where people are coming from, because it shows it whether it's in US or Canadian dollars. So that's awesome. Really appreciate it, the super chats. Adding that to the beer fund, or let me know in the chat whether you want the beer fund or the trip to visit Taylor and collab fund. Let's see. I got a lot of questions here about the inReach and some other things. Yeah, Garmin's a little bit poor on the software side of things. I think their fitness stuff is amazing. I love their fitness apps, and way better than anything else I've used. But their inReach app sucks. Nate, yeah, Zoleo, I haven't had any problems. I have a Zoleo. I'm going to be doing a full comparison of the Zoleo and inReach, especially with the plans. I think there's a lot of misinformation about the plans for inReach versus Zoleo and costs. Outcast 6, did I use the inReach to track it all? No, my phone and watch have way better GPS antennas and everything than the inReach. The inReach, I think, just pulls from the Iridium network and maybe GPS, whereas the other ones pull from a much more network. So I just tracked on my watch. Outcast 6, is the solar worth having? Nah, solar's not worth having on the Fenix. Worth having on the Instinct, though, if you are going for that watch. Craig Storms, did I like using the 6 Pro Solar and solar worth the extra dollars? No, yeah, like I just said, solar's not worth the extra on the Fenix 6. I don't know what the price difference is right now, but if it's only like $50 to $100, then might be worth it for you, because you do get extra battery life with it, and it isn't insignificant. Hayden Avizolio, yeah, I like the Garmin more. Outcast 6, did I use the Tempe while on trail with the Fenix? So that's a little pod that connects to the Fenix that tells you the temperature. I didn't use it. I just a little thing that I didn't want to bother with while I was out there. How long did the battery last on my Fenix watch? 2 days. This is the Fenix 6 Pro Solar, and it would last me 2 days of full use, leaving it on overnight, and 12 hours of GPS time tracking. So that was Gut Hooks from Mark. Gut Hooks was great. A lot of good info on it. Good trail. So that was fun. What camera did I use on the trip from Josh? I just used my phone, the Samsung S10e. If you guys have any more questions about any of the gear, let me know. We're going into some of the more general stuff, more philosophical questions, if you will. So Josh Junker, especially since we're almost hitting an hour already, that's crazy. Really appreciate everyone sticking around and hanging out. I love these live streams. They're a lot of fun. Darren, you asked, will a platypus quick draw permanently replace the Be Free in your opinion? And something cool. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but channel members now, I added little cool logos for you guys. So I don't know if that shows up for everyone in the chat, but you all have the Justin Outdoors logo there. I didn't want to put the one with my face on. I thought that would have been a little much, but it's cool to see that logo next to the channel member names. And yeah, the platypus quick draw is going to be my permanent water filter from now on over the Be Free. Probably it filters really fast, is easy to use. The issue that I had with it actually is that the bladder that came with it developed a little leak by the lid that I noticed the other day. So I've emailed them about that to see if that's a common problem. I had it rolled up all the time. That would be the only issue that I had, but I can use it with like a knock bag or whatever as well. So not a problem. Sheila, power bank. Yeah, if you're interested in any of the specific gear that I use, if you just want to know what I use on trail, then go check out the video I released on Friday. It goes through all the gear that I finished the Great Divide Trail with, why I used it, what worked, what didn't, what the MVP of the trip was. So all that info is there, and you can check that out, as well as a lighter pack, as well as links to all the gear. Wiley, air pump on this trip? No, too heavy for me, honestly. Was counting grams a lot. And yeah, air pump. There's a lot of things I could have brought that I just didn't. So yeah. Josh asked a ton of questions about gear, whether I liked it or not. I'll just kind of run through them very quickly. Platypus quick draw, yes. X-Lite, great. I wish they made a pad that was as comfortable as the Etherlite XT, but as warm and lightweight as the X-Lite. The quilt with the 7 denier fabric, yeah. So I used an Enigma quilt with 7 denier shell fabric, and the only issue that I had was it was a little bit more prone to feathers puncturing it. No down escaped, but the feathers could puncture it a little bit more easily. And I loved the 7 denier. It's very, very durable. Cold soaking, I will never cold soak. I've done it a few times and it just makes me super gassy. Best tasting foods, stay tuned. I'm gonna have a best food from the trip video, and maybe throw in some food and nutrition tips in there. Thank you, Rooster. I really appreciate that. That was tough for me. It was tough for me to share the emotional aspect of the trip, but I think was really good for me, and was good to just get out of my comfort zone with that. So glad you enjoyed that. And a few questions from Nate and Costa, kind of in line with, is there anything that I'd change out or that I'd be looking to buy to improve the Great Divide Trail if I was doing it again? And when I think about it, there's nothing that's available right now on the market that I would switch out. Everything performed like as exactly how I needed it to from a gear perspective. There's gear that I think can be improved, that the market could improve, like rain gear, that needs that I would switch out in a second if better rain gear came about. Let me just take a look at my lighter pack here and see. Same with sleeping pad. If there's a more comfortable X-Lite for warmth and weight, would switch that in a second. Something like a Be Free that was reliable, I would get that in a second as well. Just scrolling through here. Something with the InReach, and this is what I hope they do, and I've mentioned this to them, is with the next InReach Mini, have a USB-C port, and then also include a microphone and chip in order to have text to voice. So like with your phone, you can just pick it up and say what you want, and it turns that voice to text. I'd love that on an InReach Mini. You could then very practically use the device as a standalone device without getting into your phone. So that'd be voice to text on a InReach Mini type device. Phenomenal. Evan, the BRS performed great. That was Yeah, it's been a solid stove for me for going on 3 years now. It's great. Uh, any regrets with ounce counting or expensive gear that may not have been worth it? Um, I think there's some expensive gear that I use on this trip that is so marginally better than the less expensive options that I probably, if I was getting all this gear again, I wouldn't have brought with me. So definitely like, if budget's an option, then definitely you don't feel the need to copy my gear list if you're going out there and looking for gear. That's for sure. um, looking through some more questions. Mo asked, was there any gear you didn't use much or at all in the end? And this was an interesting question. I went through my entire gear list and thought about every single day and whether I used a piece of gear or not. And the crazy thing is that other than when it was really hot in the beginning or the temperatures dictated layering in a different way, I used every single piece of gear every single day, which is kind of nuts. The one piece of gear actually I didn't use was my Rology cork ball. I lost that on day 3, I think, because it's brown and blended into the ground, and I never found it and lost it. And then I didn't really feel the need for it after all. Like I do like it when I have it, but it's kind of dropped into that maybe more of a hassle than it's worth category for me. Another question here from Mo. Any gear I wish I'd brought along in the end? Not really. Honestly, like I feel great about my gear. I feel super confident how it performed every piece of gear that's on there. Like I'm pretty lucky in that I have relationships with companies and I can put together my dream list. And for the Great Divide Trail, I put together my dream list. I did not stop at anything to get the exact gear that I wanted for the trip. And I think even after the trip, I stand by the choice. Like, not stand by, the choices were correct. Like if I was doing it again, I wouldn't lie to you guys. I wouldn't just make up that it was a good gear list to toot my own horn. If there's some issues, I'd point them out. Things had issues like rain gear and some other stuff, but there's not really anything better on the market right now. I'm just looking through some questions here. Nate, did you use your trekking poles regularly or ever strap them to your pack? I use them all the time. I never put them on my pack other than when scrambling a couple of times. I use them even when scrambling. A lot of the time I use the trekking poles. I love trekking poles. My knees are pretty shot right now, but they are definitely, the trekking poles definitely helped out. Alpine Earth, any gear you change out? So kind of already addressed that. If you guys have any more questions, drop them right now because we're getting close to the end. John asked if were there sections where you brought too much or too little? Yes, definitely. I brought too much in the beginning when it was really hot, but again, I don't think I would change it up if I was doing it again unless I knew exactly what the weather was going to be doing, because the mountains are unpredictable and you got to be prepared for anything. If I knew the exact weather, I could have tailored each section a lot better, but I could have potentially get caught with my pants down if the weather does not go as planned. Alpiner, do you find no risk loop on the pole was an issue? Normally I do, honestly, and I find it a problem and I don't like it. But with these Compradel poles, they're so comfortable in my hands. Like, they're not light poles, but I love them. They're so comfortable and they work so well for me. I don't know what it is with them, but they just work very well for me. Better than a lot, like almost any other trekking pole out there, which is kind of cool, kind of neat. Wiley, how much gear maintenance do you have to deal with when you got home? Not much. Dried everything out, washed the clothes. Everything was, threw out some shoes, saved some shoes that still had some life in them, and yeah, not much gear maintenance. Didn't have to sew anything back together or anything. Would I use the Lanshan one this trip from Luciano? Yes, I would have used it. I didn't use a Bear Can, Ben. I used the Ursac Bear Bag, and it's phenomenal. I use it all the time. I've had it out for hundreds of nights, and it's great. Jimmy York, just before we wrap up here, Jimmy York asked, do you have your eyes on any new pieces of gear for the fall, winter that you're excited to try? 100%. I have some really cool gear lined up for this fall, this winter. One is a new sleeping bag that's very lightweight, very warm, and also fairly affordable as well, that I'm going to be trying out and checking out, as well as a couple more winter pieces of gear, some fire making stuff. Let me double check here. Some new like travel gear, and some more budget options. I have some really cool fall winter budget gear options that I'm going to be checking out and talking about on the channel. So that's what I'm excited to. You're gonna have to stay tuned in order to see all that gear. I have some videos planned out. Winter's gonna hit the mountains here in the Canadian Rockies very shortly, so we're gonna be transitioning from fall gear, which I'm gonna create a video about how to just kind of get ready for fall and make it easy to transition from summer to fall backpacking with cost-effective solutions that are also gonna work. And then we'll get into winter. Alpine Earth, unfortunately, may be dragged out in a hot tent. Hot tents are a nice way to enjoy the winter, that's for sure, especially if it's getting really cold. So that's everything. I'm getting really hungry. It's dinner time here, so we're gonna wrap things up. Thanks for coming by, guys. A pleasure as always, and we'll catch you on the next one. I'll probably be doing live streams once a month, so definitely stay tuned. And if you haven't checked out the video that released Friday with my full post-GDT gear list, then definitely look at that. It will probably answer a lot of your questions. But if you do have any additional questions, drop them in the comment section of this live stream and I'll answer them. Love answering your guys' questions in the comment section. I try to answer every single one and try not to miss any. So really appreciate those. We'll see you guys next time.